Okay, looks like we are live. If anybody cares to notify and chat while I'm here, that would be great. Normally it works 100% of the time, but you never know because of the big delay. So today I'm going to do something just slightly different. I don't know how long this will run for. I will go ahead and post this on YouTube without the sound of the video coming through. Sorry about that. Sorry, I had my Twitch preview up and the sound came on. So I will post it on YouTube, and so you can normally see this later. And this is be kind of a review. I was kind of hoping to do a playthrough of the game. This is the Magic the Gathering Arena of the Planeswalkers. I played it several times now. 2, 3, and 4 player, different environments, team versus team, one versus one, and then a free for all with 3 players. And it's pretty fun. I like it. You can see here I've got this actually set up with a bunch of the Heroscape terrain out there in the middle. We have a whole bunch of Heroscape stuff. I played it with both of my boys. My oldest one is now 20, almost 21, and he's out of the house. And then the youngest is 14, and we actually set this up and played it the other night with him. And we set up this cool, board. The cool thing about the board here is it gives you sort of a layout or sort of a base that you can apply the Heroscape terrain on top of, which is neat. It's all desert terrain, but that's fine. It's kind of a bland, sort of a base color, if you will, which is pretty cool. But you can see I got a bunch of other terrain. And sort of to sum up the review, the game is kind of made by having the Heroscape terrain, I think, for me. It's really fun. It's really quick. You can set it up in no time at all. You just snap together all of the different boards. You don't have to go through the trouble of setting up all the Heroscape terrain, although that's kind of part of the fun. And then you just go and whip out a game, and it basically takes about a half an hour to play a game at the most if you're just doing like a 1v1. So if we jump over here to, let's see, number 5, there we go. And so you can see some of the different components. You can see the dice at the top of the screen. That's the Heroscape dice. They're exactly the same as the dice that come in the new Magic the Gathering Planeswalkers game. The symbols are slightly different. You can see the swords there are hits versus the red skulls on the dice above are hits, and the shields are slightly differently colored, but it's pretty much the same. And then here I've just got the red and green player sort of set up. You have these cards here, and these are going to be for different blocks of units. So you can see Chandra here, this is just for her, whereas you might actually have a card here for the Blazing Fire Cats and so on. And then each of them has a deck of cards, and that's really the main difference between Heroscape and Magic the Gathering Planeswalkers is the deck of cards. And the one thing they take away from Heroscape is they have the orders that you would used to get on Heroscape, where everybody would set out their orders of which units and which cards you're going to activate, and then you would reveal them slowly. This is just you activate whatever you want, but now they've kind of replaced that and added the cards to give different special abilities and all that kind of cool stuff. So it's really quick and basic, and I will say it's fun, but kind of the problem for me is I have a lot of games in this sort of vein. And so I'll show you a quick couple here, and I think all of these made my top 100, which I did not so long ago. The first one I've got here is Claustrophobia. It's a 2-player game. It's a comparable price point. I don't know the MSRP off the top of my head, but it's about the same. The Magic Planeswalkers was 30 bucks on Amazon, and then this is probably about 30 to 40 bucks. Comes with painted miniatures and different scenarios, and it's a little bit different because it's not like 2 squads. It's basically 1 squad versus sort of an overlord or a dungeon master sort of controlling a demon kind of thing. But it's got some interesting things, some cool combat and all that stuff. It's not like a point-to-point where you're moving on hex grids. You've got these big tiles that you're sort of crowding guys into. But it's just as combat heavy as the Planeswalkers game. And then here's one of my all-time favorites here, Sentinel Tactics. This is a little bit more of a comparable game. It's a superheroes. I did a review of this not so long ago, maybe about 6 months, if that. And you have point to point, just like in the Planeswalkers. This is all superhero themed, of course. This one you have decks of cards for each of the different characters. So you can control sort of double fist or triple fist a team if you really want to. You can play with players on a team, so it's very much a team versus team game. There's also got some really cool superhero-y kind of theme, or excuse me, scenarios in here that really are awesome, very fun and cool. And so this is another good one. This is, to me, as a direct competitor. This one's going to cost you a little bit more because if you just get the base game, you don't get the miniatures. You got to go and buy the miniatures on top. But the base game, I think, is about 30 bucks. So you've got that there. Now the terrain is not as cool. Now that's probably kind of the one drawback for this game. I kind of like the terrain, but I can see a lot of people not really liking it. But this is another one, direct competitor, and I do prefer this one over the Planeswalkers. And then the other one, which is probably not what people would think here, would be Imperial Assault. This is, sort of course, has a Descent style campaign and all that kind of stuff, but it also has a two-player battle skirmish mode, which has some elements that really remind me of what happens here in Planeswalkers. So if you jump over here, of course, we have these different decks of cards. You've got a very small deck of cards, and you've got these different spells, and they match up with whatever color mage or Planeswalker that you're using. And there's not really a cost. There's a cost you can see here in the lower right-hand corner. That's the cost to put it into the deck. But in terms of playing it, you just have a limit of playing 3 cards per turn. And, whoops. And so that's very similar to the Imperial Assault game, where you are going to move guys around and you're going to be able to play different cards pretty much willy-nilly as much as you want. And the whole point of Imperial Assault is to sort of load up and build up some cool combos and then sort of fire those off at the right time to get that sort of tactical advantage over your opponent. So it's very similar in this case, but there's a little bit more interesting scenarios and a whole bunch of stuff once you buy some of the different expansion packs that give you the different scenarios that you can do in addition to the campaign, but also the skirmish mode scenarios. Now that one's quite a bit more to get into, so you're going to be spending, upwards of $100 to get into that one, and it's a Star Wars theme, of course. The last one here, also Battle Lore, is here, or excuse me, Fantasy Flight, is Battle Lore. And now this is also very similar. Again, you've got this sort of hex movement, and you got these different units here. You're going to be able to activate different units. It's a command and color. It's got a card-driven system, so it's very similar in that way. But again, this one's a little bit more expensive than what you're getting into with the Planeswalkers. You get a fair chunk of miniatures there, 2 sort of armies, lots of scenarios. Well, not really scenarios, because you can kind of build the scenarios up as you go. So that's got a lot of similarities. But again, the price point's much more expensive. And so this is the thing. This is the hard thing for me to do with the review of it, and that's kind of why I decided to just kind of shotgun this a little bit, is this is really great for the price. But I feel like without all of this extra Heroescape stuff, it's not really something I'm going to be that into, or I would be that into. And you can see here, you can sort of, if you have the Heroescape stuff, you can proxy figures there. We proxied some of the white Hookmasters or whatever they're called with those angels there. And then you can see down here these zombies here. We substituted some of the black figures for those zombies and stuff just for fun. But anyway, so that's kind of the review of the game. The movement and everything. There's a couple of videos on BGG that you can go check out in terms of some of the actual rules. But the movement and everything is exactly like Heroescape, except for the order tokens and the cards. You're just counting spaces to move, and then you're also, you're counting up. If you go up the different elevations there, it's 1 extra movement and all that kind of good stuff. You got to stop in water. Line of sight is true line of sight, which I always kind of like. That makes it kind of fun. And you've got just different special abilities on the different units and things from the big cards that you see there, and that's really what you're kind of playing around with in addition to the spells. So I think I'm not going to talk too much longer about this. I just figured I'd jump on here and see what folks thought of it and all that kind of cool stuff. But anyway, that is the Planeswalkers game. So it's kind of a weird recommendation. It's a lot of fun, and we've had a good time with it, but I've got all these other options that are just so much richer and fuller of an experience. They all are more expensive. Oh, the other one I was going to mention was Mage Wars, which is, I just think it's a little bit more expensive, but it's more cards than the miniatures and stuff. But the one comparable, I would say, the takeaway is probably Claustrophobia, and to me, that's just heads and tails a better game than this one. So, and the other one that's close is Sentinel Tactics, but again, you can get in easy, but then if you want to add more stuff on, that's going to get a lot more expensive. And again, the last 2 Fantasy Flight games I did, those are much more expensive. So if you've got the extra HeroScape stuff, though, there's kind of a, it's tempting, right? So we've got that. So I'm going to keep this, and then we'll throw it up there with the rest of my son's HeroScape stuff. And hopefully they do support it. That's one of the kind of dicey things about a Wizards of the Coast game. You're not always sure how much they're going to support it, but it's there. You can use it, and so it's something I would definitely recommend people check out. But I also kind of wanted to compare it to those other games because to me, at the end of the day, I would feel like I'd be doing a disservice. I was like, hey, jump in and get this, but there's like so many games in this sort of space here that it's tricky. So anyway, that's a quick little 10-minute shot. Tell me what you think, if this was a good format or not. But so I didn't feel like I wanted to do the whole kind of like, here's how you play, da 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 da. When my main point that I want to get across was everything I just talked about for the last 10 minutes. So if that didn't work for you, though, let me know. So anyway, take care, everybody. Thanks.